This is part 3 of our Gems of Truth from the Lord's Prayer series. Today we're looking at the prospering act of forgiveness. And I want to start out with the poster that I put up on Facebook this week. I do this every week with the thought that you usually see posted here at the very beginning of the service. But it is a summary of how we're going to approach the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness is letting go of the mental and emotional energy that binds you to the very thing you despise. Forgiveness is letting go of the mental and emotional energy that binds you to the very thing you despise. From this point of view, we approach forgiveness in a way that has nothing to do with the object of our forgiveness, with the object of the thing that we are wanting to be free from. If I give you the power, for example, to stress me out, and I have done that plenty of times, anybody, I am free as long as you're not around, or I'm not thinking about you. But the moment I think about you, or the moment you come into my life, I'm no longer free. I'm bound by whatever it is I'm thinking about you. So forgiveness is the acknowledgement that the experience that I'm having, that is losing my freedom, either thinking about you or being in your presence, is an internal experience. It's energy. It's mental, emotional energy. So forgiveness is letting go of the mental and emotional energy that binds you to the very thing you despise. And what do you despise? You don't despise the person, but the experience you're having when you're with the person or thinking of the person. That's what we don't like. I don't like myself when I'm around you. So you have all kinds of power over me. And what I want to do is be free of that. So do I hire a hitman and have him knock you off, or do I learn how to deal with what I'm doing with my own household, the energy of my own household? And that's what we want to look at, because there are so many things that happen in our lives that we can do nothing about. You know, the Chinese saying that you can't stop the bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair. My brother in Texas sent me a photograph of a titmouse, a bird sitting on top of his head that had just flown up and decided to make its nest there, I guess. I don't know. It's a bad choice. But it reminded me of that saying, and I sent it to him. I said, I guess that saying's wrong, because it looks like he's building a nest in your hair. Anyway, the idea there is that things happen in life, and we don't have to let the bird build the nest in our hair or get under our skin or grab hold of our emotions to the point where our experience becomes something very undesirable. And we all have this, and we're all subject to it, and we'll be subject to it probably today sometime. Something's going to get our attention, take control of our emotions, and send us into a tailspin of some kind. That's probably going to happen. But one of the first ways we start dealing with it is through forgiveness, and that is letting go not of the thing so much, not wishing it were different, although it would be nice probably if it was. But starting out with, what is this degrading experience I'm having? Where is it happening? And so I bring my awareness to the place that it is. I'm upset. My emotions are tanking out. I'm not in control. Is that person doing it to me, or that situation, is that doing it to me, or am I doing it to myself? If they're doing it to me, I have no control over this whole thing. So what's the spiritual path all about? Is it learning how to roll with getting beat up all the time? I'm just a good, humble Christian, a worm of the dust, and I subject myself to the slings and arrows of this earth, and like the Jehovah's Witness gets turned down at the door. To them, it's a banner of, it's an honor to get rejected because the Bible says they will. So success is rejection. So do I want to go through life thinking that somebody or something else has control over who I am? Am I just an innocent victim, but I'll get my reward in the end? That is certainly a very strong line of thought, and you'll be in good company if you maintain that. So we've gone through that, and we have entered into this arena called new thought. It's a new way of thinking of that. And that is that the world that I'm looking at, the things I'm dealing with, are not out there someplace, they're in here. It's my consciousness, my reactions, the emotions, the thoughts that I hold. So forgiveness has to do with letting go of the emotional energy, the emotion, the thought that binds me to this thing I despise. It doesn't have much to do with the thing I despise, but more so the energy. And if we keep that in mind, we can actually do something in our situation. We can change the quality of our experience. And that's what we're after. We want them to change their behaviors so the quality of our experience can be improved. So what if they don't have to do that? What if they can go ahead and be who they are? And we can still change the quality of our experience. Then we're free. That's called freedom. Because you don't control how I feel. And it's a pretty tough way to go, actually. That's why there's so few that go this path. Most of us would rather have somebody else die for our sins so that we don't have to do that. But it is ultimately up to us to die daily to the sin of falling into the trap of believing that someone or something has power over us, over our emotions, our thoughts, and all that. And we can get into arguments about cases where, there's just absolute good reason to believe that somebody can take us over. But we're not going to go that far today. Most of us are not in the situation. Most of us are in a situation where it's what's going on in our thought and feeling. We haven't been captured by some enemy force and put in a concentration camp or anything like that, or we're having to deal with things on a whole different level. But there are stories from those places that are just unbelievable. It's unbelievable how far we can take this. Most of us just never have to go there. So the thought today is, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. It's part of the Lord's Prayer. And again, it looks like a petitionary prayer. God, please give me everything I need to get through the day. And forgive me of my sins, forgive me all of my wrongdoings, and I'll do my best to forgive those that sin against me. So it's kind of this bargain with the external world and God. God, you take care of me, and I'll do my best to be good, walk the straight and narrow and be a good person, and try to get along with everybody. And so we start our morning that way. It lasts about 10 minutes and go back into our old fight the world, lose control of the emotion. We think if we bargain with God, somehow our world will be a little more peaceful, and it's not always that way. So we bargain again. We keep bargaining. So it's not about bargaining, it's about interpretation. It's about how we choose to experience life. That's what we're looking at. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. The fulfillment of our daily bread, our daily needs, is tied to the act of forgiveness. That's what this statement is doing. Somehow, having our needs met is tied to forgiveness. If you think of forgiveness as letting go, you can kind of see it in the context I started with. My needs for today are met. A metaphysical translation, a spiritual translation of this line would be, my needs for today are met, and all blocks to my greater good are removed as I release all resentments of the past. I think that's what the line is saying. That's what I get out of it. My needs for today are met. In other words, I'm not in a universe of lack, I'm in a universe of completion. That all that I need is here now if I open my eyes to it. If I don't, if I cling to something else, cling to the past, cling to resentment, cling to whatever, I can't see. I'm blind. You know, that's one of the things Moses said to the people that had the Red Sea in front of them and the Egyptians behind them, to lift up your eyes. Take your eyes off the apparent problem. And that would be pretty hard to do in that situation. It's hard enough to do just in our daily stuff. But this idea is my needs for today are met. It's not a please meet them. It's the affirmation that they're already met. The answer's already here. The answer to whatever problem I have is already here. All blocks to my greater good are removed as I release all resentments of the past. So the ball is not in God's court, it's in mine. Like the answer's here, so I'm willing to let go of the target, the tunnel vision I have. It has to be fulfilled this way. It has to work this way or that way. I'm willing to let that go. To say that infinite mind is now opening my eyes. You know, I lift up my eyes to see not the problem, but the answer, the solution, maybe not the specific solution, but knowing that as I stand here, the solution is now unfolding, shift in perception. That person is not keeping it from me, that situation is not keeping it from me. It's again like a video that's playing. You have all these different frames of film that are going through the projector. If you stop on a particular frame, it looks pretty bad. But you let the movie keep playing. You have the faith to let the movie keep playing. You see that the thing does resolve. And you're living proof of that. Every problem you've ever had is resolved. You may be having one now. But everything that has led you up to this point has been resolved. You've gotten through that. And you have lost your faith and you've regained it. It doesn't do any damage to your relationship with God to waver, to go up and down. Very important idea to keep in mind. I've told you many times, I thought early in my spiritual career that I was losing in low moments what I had gained in the high. And I just felt like I kept taking 3 steps backward for every step forward I took. God doesn't see it that way. Nothing in this universe changes. If I think I'm losing ground, that's the thing I need to forgive. That's the thing I need to let go of. That's the very thing I despise. That belief that I'm losing what I once gained. That is a very destructive thought. I don't always see the good of what I've gained, but that's not the same as thinking I've lost it. Because thinking you've lost it is terrifying. You think if you lose it enough, you're going to reach the end of your life and you're going to go to hell, or you're going to go to something like it. You have to come back here as an earthworm or something. I don't know, some way to pay your dues. You're not going to get out of that. That's kind of a frightening thought. I don't believe that. I never have believed that. But in fact, I'd like to come back as your dog or your cat for the most part. That'd be a great life. But if you think you're losing, and that's why I focus on the complete soul, you can't lose what you are. You can forget it, but you never lose it. And that's a very freeing thought. You can totally mess it up, but you're still going to be okay. That's good to know. It's like it'd be like a pilot training in a simulator. You can crash the thing, but you never die. It's like it's safe. That's why they have these things. In the actual plane, that could be a different story, but you can't lose your soul, ever. You lose sight of it. And when Jesus, I think, talks about losing your soul, gaining the world but losing your soul, he's talking about gaining the world. You're very much in the world, very successful. Your whole identity is built on what you have, and you've lost sight of who you are. And we see that wealth does not satisfy people. The drug problem and suicide, all of the things that go on, we've seen, a couple of celebrities in the last several weeks, I guess, commit suicide. Why would somebody that has it all commit suicide? They haven't touched something in themselves. They have not made a connection there someplace. So they've gained the world, but where's the soul? And what I think happens when a person like that commit suicide is they rediscover their soul. And it's like, oh, I didn't need to do that. I think that's the message that they get. But they're not condemned to hell for doing that, any more than if you're trying to do something and you fail at it, that you're condemned to a life of failure. You'll do something else. Something maybe you do better. But failure is often a very good thing, unless we're unforgiving. If we're hanging on to the resentment of, they did it to me, or I was so dumb I did it to myself, or whatever, we're in a pool of energy that you can't rise out of until you let it go. So the attitude here is, my needs for today are met, and all blocks to my greater good are removed as I release all resentments of the past. They're removed on the condition that I'm willing to release all resentments of the past. I have carried resentment. I know what that's like. I know what it is to do that. When I severed my relationship with our headquarters, Unity headquarters, after a 3-year battle with them, with their system, and deciding that that's not me. I didn't sign up for this. This organization does not represent what I believe anymore. I was resentful for quite a while because I lost the thing I gave my life to. I felt like I had lost the thing I gave my life to. It was like a divorce. And it's painful, and I could look at all the reasons that they had changed the whole organization and made it something different from what I thought it was. And I could be very resentful, and I spent about a year trying to fix that, trying to get it back on track. And I reached the point where I realized that was not necessary. I let it go. It's like a divorce and hoping you can change that other person somehow. But sometimes it's better to part ways and to acknowledge it's different. They've changed it. It's okay. It made me really do some soul searching. Why did I get into this work? Did I get into this work to be a representative of unity? Or did I get into this work to be a representative of truth? And I realized when I discovered this way of life, I didn't even know unity existed. What I discovered was something I wanted to share with others, and it was not an organization. The organization is like the bucket that carries the thing, the teaching. You can break the bucket, but the teaching's still there. Or you can change the bucket. You can use the bucket to carry something else, which is what's happened. So to recognize that is a freeing thing. I have not lost my relationship with the reason I signed up for this. I've not lost my relationship with God. One organization I used to represent, I no longer do. It no longer represents me. But isn't that what life does? What on this earth stays the same forever? The earth itself doesn't stay the same. The earth used to be dominated by dinosaurs, 150 million years. Can you imagine that? A whole different thing was going on here. Had nothing to do with us. They had no Democrats and Republicans. Plenty of carnivores, but politics was not. It was just survival of the fittest, I guess. I don't know. But it was successful. You know, what's failure, what's successful? It was very successful. Just, you know, something interesting to think about. Has not much to do with what I'm talking about, but that's not unusual. So we hold resentment. When we hold resentment for even the smallest offense, our thought and emotional energies accumulate around that offense, creating a blockage that hinders the free flow of the divine. Now, that doesn't mean that we affect God. Doesn't mean we hinder the operation of God. God is constant, never stops operating. Remember the Earthrise photo I showed you of the light shining on the earth, and all around it is blackness, and that even within the blackness there is light. There's just simply at that moment nothing there to reflect the light, but the light is just as present. The light is omnipresent, everywhere present equally at the same time, not just on the things we can see, you know, reflecting off the things we see. That's a very important thing to carry in our thought. I am in the fullness of God now. So there's all this black space around me. It looks like my life is falling apart. But the fullness of the light is there, always. The fullness of God is present even in that blackness. So where does the interpretation of the blackness, where does that matter? It matters in me, how I'm seeing that black. There is no light here. There's no help here. I'm saying that, and I get up and I live my day as if that's true. But the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. John's words. Profound revelation of the truth of the nature of omnipresence, everywhere present equally at the same time. Not more on Sunday or Saturday if you happen to be Jewish, the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a state of consciousness. So when we hold resentment for even the smallest offense, our thought and emotional energies accumulate around that offense, creating a blockage that hinders the free flow of the divine. So it doesn't stop the free flow of divine. That's the important thing, but it influences our experience with the divine. It influences the way I interpret the blackness. There is no God here. There's no God in my life. This problem is beyond hope. So I changed that, my thinking there. Okay, I'm having a computer issue again here, so I'm going to do this. So keep your mind open. Keep your mind an open channel through which the infinite life of God may manifest in continually expansive ways. Let me do this. I have a love-hate relationship with computers, as most of us do, I think. Mine up here went off, so I've got to do this. Keep your mind an open channel through which the infinite life of God may manifest in continually expansive ways. In other words, when things start going, this is where forgiveness comes in. This is the power of forgiveness. It's what it is. Is stop interpreting this thing like you are that's making you miserable. You have another option. The light does shine in the darkness. The darkness is not overcoming it unless you say it is. So we look at a situation, we say, it's not that thing that is upsetting me, it's this thing, this inner experience I'm having. This is what is upsetting. Can I do something about that? Maybe, maybe not. Can I do something about this? Absolutely. I bring my awareness back to the presence of God. I keep my mind open an open channel through which the infinite life of God may manifest in continual expansive ways. I don't know the answer. I don't have to. I see myself as the channel through which the answer unfolds. Charles Fillmore said that mind is the common meeting ground of God and man. When our mind is locked in resentment, our creativity and receptivity become restricted to a very narrow level of operation. This line in the Lord's Prayer reminds us to keep the avenue of mind open and fluid. So as I have said from the beginning, all three of these parts of this series, we've gotten halfway through the Lord's Prayer. There is a profound level of teaching all through this that we just don't see when we get up and parrot this thing. There's a whole different way to look at it, and I hope I'm bringing some of that to you. All right, thank you for coming out, and we'll see you again soon.